a primary hub, which is going to be a device on the network, and there will be another device that's a secondary hub. And if the client devices can't communicate for some reason the primary, they'll fail over and utilize the backup or secondary hub until the primary gets restored. So there is some, fault handling basically that's designed into that because it is a critical function. And in addition to the encryption that the TLS certificates provide, it also allows for authentication or some sort of, at least some identity verification possibly, depending on how specific you get with the certificates. If you bind the certificates to that host URL, then it can also deal with the identity verification as well as just the authentication. Don't think about going to well-known public CAs like Thought or GoDaddy or VeriSign. The intention of this is that there would be a local certificate authority that gets set up by the end customer or you as the contractor that's installing, and you're going to use that local CA certificate to digitally sign all the server certificates for all of the BACnet SC devices on the network. And this just kind of shows you what that SC connection looks like. There is a certificate on both sides of the connection, and there's an exchange of those certificates. So the devices are using those to authenticate, to verify that they've been signed by the trusted CA, and it creates an encrypted connection there. So just want to go through real quickly there, at least just to ground everybody and give you some basic idea of what BACnet SC is, because it seemed like not very many people understood what it was to begin with. So hopefully that helps at least set some groundwork there.
Thank you, James. So I want to step back a little bit away from the theory and the topology of BACnet SC. And today what I want the panelists to do is kind of imagine that I'm a contractor that's using their products, and I just got my first BACnet SC specification that kind of landed on my desk, right? And so first and foremost, I want to ask the panelists, and I'll kind of go through who I want to answer each question. If I'm one of your systems integrators and I'm taking on my first project, that's BACnet SC. And keep in mind that I've got a team that's been doing BACnet MSTP for years. We've done some BACnet IP, but I've got a new specification that just landed on my desk that said SC, and my first phone call is to you. So I want to start with Stephen Praeter from Distech. What's your first recommendation for me?
Well, with the setup, I guess, are you sure? It's, I think the first thing I'd ask, is one, you'd have to get comfortable with IP, right? So if you haven't really done any IP, BACnet IP jobs or understanding the Ethernet network, you need to go through that first. Aside from that, the next thing I think for BACnet SC is deciding who that issuer or that local certificate authority owner is going to be, right? Is it the customer's IT department? Is it going to be you as the system integrator? The last thing you want to do is do it yourself, and then you turn the building over, and the IT department tells you we're not going to accept that we have to control it, and you have to redo all the certificates on the site. I think that would be one of the biggest, and then going through the whole learning process of some trial and error, right? If it's your first time, nothing beats having a couple controllers on a bench somewhere, and the guy who's going to implement it start playing and trying to figure out how it works. At least that's how I always learn, right? I got to break it and then fix it before I fully understand it. So those would be where I would start.
Awesome, yeah. So thinking that I'm that contractor that just saw that, they just got that first specification, you have to imagine that I've got a handful of buildings out there that are partially IP, partially BACnet MSTP. And now this building owner, this end user is saying, yeah, we decided everything needs to be BACnet SC. What does a mixed architecture of that stuff look like? Is that the right way we should be doing it? And this question is going to be for Al Putnam from Cimetrics. What do these mixed architectures really look like, and is it the right way to go? Is there a wrong way to do it? What are your thoughts on how that looks?
In some ways, when you've gotten over the initial fear, you need to look at what the customer really needs and wants from us. Often it's that they want security out into the enterprise. And the enterprise doesn't much really care about what you're doing locally. And if you can keep the plane of exposure to the IT department reasonably small and make it so that they get what they want and the local installer can do what they want, usually used to doing with MSTP and IP, is a good way to try and start if they don't say something like it's going to be all SC. So a hybrid approach is highly recommended. IP and MSTP won't fly for going up to the secure enterprise. And SC is very good for the secure enterprise, but it presents complexities and some issues that have to be addressed. If you get that purchase order, very much you should try and say, how much SC do we really need? Do we need it for the enterprise? And think about a hybrid approach. Think about ways that you can continue to use existing controllers, you can continue to use existing BACnet, and the things that you know and love, and then expose only that which you need. And it's a good cybersecurity practice too, to keep the exposure plane minimal.
Great. So, remember, I've been installing IP devices for years now. I've had multiple Niagara instances and Jaces and servers that I've been managing certificates on for a while for end users. And I'm going to put that in quotes because I know I've done it and I have no clue what I just did, right? Most of the time, certificates are kind of in and beyond me and beyond a lot of our customers that don't play in that world. So I want to ask kind of all three panelists, and you can go quickly, you can pass, but what's your suggested approach to learning about this whole world? I still think that, we've got some large enterprise customers that have been playing in this world for a lot longer than the others, but now we're seeing, a lot of customers who never played in this world, and they're being told they need to manage certificates. And at Cochrane Supply, I don't have a great training class to throw them into to teach them what that means and what that looks like. So I want to start with James Johnson, just kind of go across, but how do I get my team and my team at Cochrane Supply trained up on how to help with this?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I've been a cybersecurity champion for a long time. Anytime I do training with customers, we always focus on cybersecurity, including certificate management and using trusted TLS connections. I know that Tridium, the training department there as well, they've started incorporating into the various TCP classes and things, certificate management and cybersecurity into those courses as well. And the other thing I would say is just depends on how you learn. A lot of people can just go online and read through some blogs and practice some things there, or maybe look at taking a networking cybersecurity type course through a local community college or online class. But also don't be adversarial with the IT department. I've seen that in a lot of cases where even the facilities group with an end customer is adversarial with their own IT department, and they try to do everything they can to circumvent them and bypass the security or whatever. So you want to make sure that you work with the IT department on whatever customer that you're working on. And I guess sometimes that's a small church or a one-off building and there's not an IT department, so then you're kind of on your own to figure all this out. But if it's any kind of sizable customer that has some IT infrastructure, work with them and find out what they're doing today, to sign things. I think Steve mentioned, the last thing you want to do is go set up a CA and sign everything and then turn around and the IT department says, no, you have to sign them with our certificates, which would just double your effort. So, work with the people that already know it and try to learn from there would be my suggestion.
Great. Stephen, what do you think?
I don't think there's too much to add to that. I think we as Distech, the other things that we have, right, we have one individual, and if anyone's talked to him, everybody probably knows Robert. But, so we have that secret sauce to help out in certain situations. We are working, I think we have a very, I'll say, limited module on our learning portal, right, trying to educate people what BACnet SC is, but not necessarily the how-to steps at the moment. I think we're still really working through that with, trying to find tools to help make that progress or give you that easy button, which just doesn't seem to exist yet. So just not much else to add.
Yeah, great. Al, what are your thoughts?
I echo the thoughts that they have. I think that those are great things. I might go one step further. You get that contract and you want to try and do something, get yourself a couple of SC devices and from the vendor, from the people that you usually do, and try and set up a hub and see what it means to do a certificate authority. The products from the OEMs often have a built-in certificate authority to get started. Don't be afraid of trying it on the bench and then saying, I'm going to onboard 2 devices, one device and a hub, and I'm going to see that it actually works from a client that I have available. And when you get stuck, look for websites and the other pieces that are out there in order to try and work through that. But there's nothing, there are different ways of learning. It's nothing like having some hands-on to take a look at how that would go. To the point of changeover certificate authority, that will happen. It probably will happen no matter what you try to do. Somebody's going to change over the building or do something like that. And if you know what your capabilities are in your own, what your OEM provides as capabilities, what other capabilities are out there, and you don't have to know them in depth, you just have to know that they exist, then you can be prepared to go through that era of your building, get with the life cycle and say, okay, they've messed me up and they've changed everything out. I'm going to have to issue new certificates. I'm going to have to get used to a different way of doing things. Envision that beforehand and be ready for that to happen. And look for people who can help you with that. Like they were saying, the people who are in the service support teams from your OEMs and from other people to get you to that place.
Perfect. I think that most of our systems integrators and even the distributors and the manufacturers, in the building automation space, a lot of times we're playing consultant as well. And I want to know, in your guys' opinion, kind of in situations maybe so far that you've been brought into, and we don't have to talk about customer names or anything, but in situations where you were brought in for consulting, have you seen any kind of IT objections, or have you been able to, do you have any kind of notes or topics to give to a contractor to help them steer maybe someone who's trying to implement SC? Maybe it's too early for this end user, maybe it's too at broad scale for this end user, maybe it's in an application that doesn't make sense. Are there any real world scenarios that you guys have had where you've kind of steered that maybe design into another direction? James?
Yeah, definitely. I think it kind of breaks down into greenfield versus existing, retrofit or existing jobs as well. It's one thing on a completely brand new building that's going in to maybe try to say, I'm going to do BACnet SC across the board. And it's certainly going to be a lot more nodes and certificates that have to be managed that the IT department themselves might not typically be used to handling. When it's existing systems in particular, we've been having conversations with customers about that architecture, where obviously BACnet MSTP is never going to talk encrypted, or you have a substantial installation of MSTP and IP already. Then maybe the idea is you isolate that with an OT network, and then you put in a router to go from BACnet IP to BACnet SC once you get it onto the IT network, onto the enterprise side. So keep the non-encrypted traffic off on a separate OT network, and then use a router to convert your MSTP or IP traffic over to SC. And then it would be fewer nodes to manage also on the IT, on the enterprise network at that point. But we've definitely been working with customers on those kinds of scenarios.
Yeah. And Stephen, from the device level, I think between, and I'm going to get Al's opinion on this too, between you two, Al's kind of products seem on more on the server and enterprise side. And then, whenever I'm looking at the Distech product line, I've got BACnet SC all the way down at the device. What are the differences there? Like, what is Distech's thought on providing, a BACnet SC device down at the VAV box level or whatever it may be?
We certainly have those capabilities. I think Al kind of brought it out pointedly earlier, right? It's going to be unique for every customer, right? Are they going to allow us a building of 800 controllers? Do they expect every one of those to be a secure node, or can I do some type of network segmentation where I limit what the enterprise is seeing, right? So maybe instead of 800 nodes, we go down to 100 or some other logical subnetting of the building. So I think a lot of that really is on a case-by-case basis as you talk, one with the customer and what you're comfortable with doing, and then what the IT department, some IT departments will be like, oh, I can only give the BMS, I can give you guys 5 IP addresses, right? I can't give you 800. So you have different things that you have to work with no matter who that end customer might be.
Right. And Al, what are your thoughts from kind of the server side on that end? What do you say when you see different specifications rolling out for BACnet SC that might say, one way or the other, they do want limited nodes or they do want massive scale. What's your opinion on that?
We're dealing with large sites, and they do ask for down to the endpoint, but they often back off for the reasons that you were describing, that they say, well, we're going to have to give out 800 IPs. Well, they never wanted to give out 800 IPs in the first place. There was BACnet IP. And by the way, they love SC in the sense that you say that it's encrypted wrapper around everything. And then the IT department says, that's great. Thank you. Stop with the BACnet IP. And then you say to them, well, it's just a small exposure, even though we're going to deal with large enterprise. There'll only be 100 or so. They say, we love you, we're not worthy. And then you say to them, and you're going to have to manage certificates, and they go, get out. Yeah, there's the door for you, because nobody wants to do that. We don't want to do that. Nobody really wants to keep track and manage the certificates all the time. You may have to do that as a necessary evil to get started, even in the large enterprise. Coming back to the large enterprise, which the question was about, they don't have minute one for you to put on them another management responsibility. And we thought in the beginning when we were doing enterprises that they would all want control. They don't want control. They don't want you, they want to give you an IP address, they want to know that it's secure, and they want you to go on with life. And they want a management node to actually keep the certificates current, and those are available from the OEMs, and the OEMs are really stepping up to the plate with that. One of the things we're trying to do is to help provide that both as a beachhead and as an ongoing system, so that there will be, for either the enterprise or a small site, first the enterprise, a button that you press to say, I did this all once, please just keep doing it for me.
Perfect. So I'm going to do one more question for each panelist here, and then I want to kind of give a little bit of time for Q&A if anybody wants to yell at any questions. But James kind of touched on this, which is, what verticals are we seeing this in? Right now, it feels like probably less than 1% of any kind of projects are thinking about BACnet SC or asking about it. And then greenfield versus brownfield, enterprise customers versus, retail vertical versus medical. Really what I want each panelist to kind of tell us is, what verticals are we going to see this in? And what % of projects are going to use it now versus in the next 5 years? And how quickly do I need to scale up my team to be ready to handle this? James?
Yeah. Lots of good questions there. Try to unpack that a little bit. Yes. I think that the customers that are more interested in adopting BACnet SC right now are going to be the ones that are more concerned with cybersecurity in general already today. So when you talk about healthcare or DoD, GSA, banks, things of customers of that nature that already have a very prominent cybersecurity posture, even with the BMS system and the OT or IoT network, right? Those are going to be the ones that are going to embrace it first. I think there's some pretty big management hurdles that all of us have already alluded to, and I think ASHRAE is trying to solve some of those problems. There's a specification that was adopted back in September or October last year that spells out like how a BACnet SC device should generate a certificate signing request, or what the APIs are to be able to do that. So today, unfortunately, all of the different manufacturers have different ways of managing certificates in their own devices. There's not one universal tool that would empower an IT department or a systems integrator to manage certificates across a variation of branded devices. It'd be one thing if the only thing you put in was Distech, which would be fine. You'd be happy with that, right? But if you have mixtures of manufacturers and things like that, right, it's going to complicate the certificate management. So I think until we see some of that firmed up, where we kind of have some universal tools available, it's going to be a little bit more of an academic exercise, and it's going to be pockets of people wanting to implement the SC for that extra cybersecurity. But they're going to do that knowing that there's this extra management overhead of managing these certificates throughout the life cycle. Once it gets a little bit easier, we'll see the acceleration pick up, I think.
Gotcha. Stephen, what do you think? Which verticals and how quickly do I need to scale my team up to handle it?
Yeah, I think we're seeing it, of course, with government and those type of networks. Healthcare, that's the other big ask. The other one we're starting to see is the multi-site retail folks. Surprisingly, they have very, very high levels for cybersecurity just in general, even with the regular BMS. So we're starting to see it there as an ask. But I think James put it well, right? There's not that, as far as scaling up, I think we have some time, right? Because there's no easy way to do a lot of it. And, I tried to find a good number from us, at least is how many SC jobs we have out there. And the best number I could get was between 30 and 40. So if you think of how many SIs we have across just North America and how many projects they're all doing, 30 or 40 out of 200 and some SIs, and who knows how many projects they're all running. It's not a lot. Now, granted, these are probably some larger enterprise ones. I know there's a couple in the government sector where, at the end of the job, there's going to be 5,000 controllers out on the site. So they're not small projects, but they're very few and far between. They're very specific and targeted.
Perfect. Al, which verticals? How quickly do I need to get my team ready?
I'll have to repeat what they said.
Good.
They're pretty spot on associated with that. The only one we have that's extra is airports. But healthcare, government, those kinds of places with high security and cybersecurity stances. Our numbers are around 10 sites that are out there, and they're very large sites, typically thousands to tens of thousands. We haven't been dealing with the multi-point retail. That's probably going to come up, but more quickly for the OEMs than it would for us. We're dealing with enterprise ones. We're trying to make the learning, though, go and scale all the way down to, you only have 10 devices. You don't have 100 devices. You have them multiply over a large surface area. And you need something to do that easily, and you may need to do it interoperably among vendors. That's where we're seeing our customer base come up from. And I think that's about all in terms of no more verticals that I know, but a government, healthcare, and oddly enough, airports.
Perfect. No, that's what I wanted to get out of this session today. Was I really wanted to get an idea of how much of the market that our different customers are playing in is really going down this path. And I really wanted to reiterate as well that we have vendors and we have technology specialists that are ready to tackle this if it comes. Distech said they've got 30, 40 sites. Cimetrics has a few. I know James has been involved with multiple. They're ready to tackle it. Whenever you get your first SC specification that lands on your desk, Cochrane Supply and our vendor partners are ready to help you figure out what you need to do and get your team ready for it. We're focusing on training up our training staff and our tech support staff more with networking and certificates, so that whenever you put in a tech support ticket at Cochrane Supply, we hope you can get some support on that end quickly and easily if you need it. It's not something that's foreign to us. But I want to thank all the panelists today. They've done a great job. If anybody has any questions on BACnet SC, I'll give just a few minutes. Any hands?
I got one.
Mike.
Hey, back row plane. Hey, just a couple of quick ones. Do you guys have any good horror stories or anything like that of somebody who's been burned by not having BACnet SC? So some man-in-the-middle attack or something like that was sniffing the BACnet packets, and have you run into that? And then follow-up question to that was, for once somebody implements this kind of architecture in that, do you have anybody that's doing any kind of like packet sniffing or snooping on the network to make sure that there's not any other traffic but this on the network? Or are they stopping that at the switch level or router or stuff like that?
Anybody?
My simple answer is no, or at least not that I know of yet, right? So we haven't had like the man-in-the-middle thing that I'm aware of. And then as far as, Julio's not here, if anyone saw us on Wednesday, he is our Wireshark fanboy, so he would be that individual out there making sure that we did what we said we were going to do.
I might have something on it. In the devices, we got a call from the market from large organizations for the Wireshark capability, and we're planning to embed it inside of any of the devices at the hub level or at the network segmentation level. It's really hard out on the main area without getting a proxied certificate. That can be done, but it tends to be easier if you have your own certificates and you just look where you can actually look already. Horror stories. The horror stories are mostly about, in the old days, getting blocked by IT. It isn't necessarily that anything bad has ever happened. It's just that you walk into some place and IT says, you can't do that. You can't do BACnet IP. You can't do multi-drop switching. I see Bobby in the audience right there.
She's laughing.
And they tell you you can't do these things. This is supposed to be a way of addressing all their needs, putting aside all of their difficulties, and keeping your own business on your own side of things, where you can do what you need to do, and yet have a good stance that goes with their policy on the outside. That may mean it's hard for us. I mean, policy is looking like it didn't get mentioned, but certificate reissuance is going to be a real bear for everybody because the federal government just came up with 47 days as being the time to renew a certificate.
Crazy.
And nobody was foreseeing that. But it may be that the tools will have to do that in order to prove out to IT that that works. If you did it once and you can replicate it again with a script or an easy button, it's 3 days would be okay. It's just going to get a lot of management traffic then, and that would be a horror story.
Cool, thanks.
All right, thank you,
And-
panelists.
And
Oh, go ahead.
putting it on the device itself, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. Especially for those retail type of situations where things might be really spread out. I like it for that.
I think,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think you're going to see tools evolve too, Mike, like, Qualys or Nessus or things that today are threat assessment scan software. They're going to expand the umbrella of what they're looking at probably. And they're going to start trying to validate, our certificates expired or who they signed by or things like that. I'm sure that, not today, it hasn't grown to that, but I would foresee people expanding what they look for as far as vulnerabilities. Is there BACnet IP, UDP traffic still on the network after we implemented SC and do other validation tests, I would suspect.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Thank you, panelists. We really appreciate it. Our next session will be up in just a few, but if you guys have any questions at all about BACnet SC, keep these guys in mind. Go find them at their booth. Reach out to us and we can get you in touch with them anytime. And thank you all for coming.
Okay, thank you, everyone.